You're listening to the Telltale Channel. In this podcast, Dave Cullen is an anti-woke YouTuber that's been around for a very long time. I was pulled down an anti-woke pipeline many years ago. We used to call it anti-SJW. This dude went on a ridiculous tirade about the EU banning gendered language. It's false, of course, but when you fall down the anti-woke rabbit hole, you'll fall for anything. Donald Trump claimed he didn't know anything about Project 2025. What is it? And can he really deny connections to it? Let me prove to you that he knows exactly what it is and that he supports it. Ex-congressional candidate Laura Loomer went viral on Twitter for falsely claiming that Joe Biden had a medical emergency on Air Force One. She was not happy when people called her on it and proved she was full of it. She claimed it's true anyway, and the real information will come out any day now. Just wait and see. The responses are actually very funny. There's a self-proclaimed prophet on YouTube named Troy Black. He claims that God told him who the next president will be, and the answer is a moth. I'm dead serious. God also gave him a message about bananas. Millions of views on this guy's channel. 500,000 subbies. Let's talk about it. This is a book called Cruel Logic by Brian James Godawa, The Philosopher Killer. And it's about woke serial killers and stuff. Oh my God, it's like this right-wing fever dream. Like this is how police departments work and stuff. It's so ridiculous, dude. Let me just read a page of it. And you guys tell me what you think about it. The reader may notice some endnotes throughout the text. This is because much of the material in this story was drawn from real events and or published materials. So this is real. This isn't even a thriller. This is real in his mind or whoever. Is this a guy or a gal or a non-binary pal? Looks like it's a dude, Brian Godawa. Okay, so real events here. We're about to read from this woke thriller novel. Oh God, it's painful. Also, the dialogue of professors was based on real beliefs being promoted currently in modern universities and in the public square of ideas. I don't believe you, I'm sorry. In writing this book, I made the decision that integrating direct quotes or paraphrases of certain scholars and influencers would add to the verisimilitude. Why? I've never heard that word before. The appearance of being true or real, okay? Why didn't he just say that? The verisimilitude this story seeks to achieve. Also, be sure to check out the cast of characters page. No, thank you. All right. Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people. The quote from Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung came to Dr. Joseph Callenger's mind as he walked through the second set of inner security gates at Bratton State Hospital for the criminally insane. You ready? This is where it starts. Buckle up. Of course, no one ever said the criminally insane part anymore. It was considered offensive language that stigmatized the inmates. These were now called patients for the same reason. Wouldn't want to stigmatize mentally ill criminals just because they've assaulted, take advantage of, or murdered other people. So it was just Bratton State Hospital. Wokeists taking the word insane out of it. An overweight station guard had let Joseph through after inspecting his credentials. They called the guarded security entrance to the hospital the Sally Port. Another guard, also overweight and bursting out of his uniform, led Joseph and Anna Zosinger, his PhD student, down the government building hallway of two-toned painted cinder blocks, ugly gray and cream, and floor laid with what looked like linoleum tiles from the 70s. For God's... Look, as far as the opener where it was really violent, I'm going to skip that so people probably won't see that in the final video, but there's a place for that kind of thing, and it's not on page 1. You need to get us invested in the story first, and then maybe take that leap. This is just disgusting. Was he just trying to turn off any prospective woke readers or something? I don't understand why he did that. For God's sake, it's the 21st century, Anna muttered to him. Why do all these state hospitals have to look like cliches out of an old TV crime show? The benefits of public funding, Joseph replied. Just use it as fodder for an interesting description in your dissertation. One of the overhead fluorescent lights flickered as if to accentuate his words. Maybe I should make the topic about the impact of state hospitals on climate change from the lack of environmentally friendly CFL bulbs. Oh boy, here we go. They're attacking climate change now. Joseph smiled. Now that would get you government funding. This is dumb as dog shit. Is it just me? There's an audiobook. Somebody read this audiobook, actually read the book. audibly, other than me. Wow, it's so packed with woke garbage. Let me rephrase. It's packed with anti-woke garbage. They turn down another hallway toward their destination, another flickering light marking their path. I feel like he could have used a different editor. I feel like some of the editing decisions are not decisions I would have made. Anna was a bit cynical, but Joseph liked her sharp mind and indomitable spirit. After all she'd been through, here she was at 24 years of age and already in her second year of grad school, studying forensic psychology. Psychology, another major, I guess, or another field that anti-woke people shun, hate, think it's ridiculous. She was the best student he had ever had. In fact, she had more promise than he'd ever had. That's why he'd been willing to use his access to the hospital to help her get some interviews with the psychopath Charles Cullen for research purposes. I'm a little scared, Anna said. Joseph thought he heard a quiver in her voice. He hasn't displayed any violent tendencies in the 4 years he's been here. He's been a model patient. You'll be safe. She retorted, from his mind games? Joseph nodded with resignation. Cullen was a genius at playing people. When he'd been a philosophy professor, he'd reminded Joseph of the late William F. Buckley Jr. Oh, okay. I thought that Cullen was the philosophy professor for some reason. All right. So the underlying point, philosophy professors play mind games with people. If Buckley had become a vampire, he would be William F. Buckley Jr. Complete with the upper-class English accent, soulless eyes, social politeness, and dark, unsettling presence beneath the surface. Joseph grabbed Anna's arm and looked into her eyes. Are you not feeling up to the task? He asked the question condescendingly, forcing her to toughen up. She swallowed. Yeah, no, I'm ready. I just have some triggered memories. Oh, here we go. More anti-woke garbage. Some triggered memories. You're right, Joseph sighed. I'm sorry. Look, I'm not going to lie. He will try to get inside your head, but you've got this. I'm confident he'll be sorry if he does. That people use the term, all right, I have PTSD, like real PTSD, from dealing with my dad when I was little. You know, there are a few things that trigger me, and when I say trigger, I mean throw me back into that moment where I close my eyes and I see these things happening again. A floor banging like somebody is running down a hallway, or hearing the violin played really softly, or hearing the songs, If You're Happy and You Know It, Clap Your Hands, or He's a Jolly Good Fellow. Those two songs specifically. You know, I close my eyes and I can see shelves being pulled down and phone cords ripped out of the walls. Those specific things. It's wild. So I know what trigger means. When people use the word trigger in society today, they're not claiming to have PTSD. They're using it improperly, and most people know that they're using it improperly. It's not a big deal. Get over yourself. As somebody who would be victimized by this and defended by the conservatives who don't like people misusing the word triggered, I don't care. It's none of your business. I will be upset when I'm upset. Thank you very much. My God, people. Seriously, get help. Anyway, so she has some triggered memories here. You're right, Joseph sighed. I'm sorry. Look, I'm not going to lie. He will try to get inside your head, but you've got this. I'm confident he'll be sorry if he does. Anna shared a nervous smile with him. He held her arm reassuringly, but not too long or too familiar for their academic relationship. Oh my God, dude. This is so stupid. How many, sales does this have? How many ratings? 336 ratings. Are you kidding me? Ratings usually account for about 5% of actual sales numbers. So 336 ratings divided by 0.05. He probably sold 7,000 copies. 7,000 copies. You know how much money that is? Assuming he went through a regular publisher, he makes, say, 15%. He probably made $21,000 from this exchange. $21,000. The publishing company probably brought in $150,000. This is insane. You know, I went to a convention years ago, and at that convention, the first speaker was somebody who said, if you look at somebody for more than 6 seconds and it's unwelcome, it's sexual assault. That's a little bit far for me. You know what I did? I stood up and walked out and didn't give it another thought. Moved on with my life because it's not that big of a deal. And this person is obsessing over what is appropriate and what is inappropriate in relationships. Is it okay to put your hand on somebody's arm for some period of time if it's a professional relationship? spoken like somebody who's gotten in trouble for inappropriately touching somebody, right? Is that just me? Probably ratings from the author buying his own book. Yeah, it could be, but I don't think so. Because I've heard of this. Like, this book is pretty widespread. And it has an audiobook. Audiobooks are very expensive. I did my audiobook myself, so I didn't have to spend a penny on it, but they cost like $6,000 to $8,000, depending on who you use and whatever. You can have AI do it, and that's like $1,000 or something. But anyway, the guard cleared his throat to move them along, and they followed. Anna said, so he got his doctorate in philosophy at Cambridge in the UK with an emphasis in ethics. Joseph completed her statement. Postdoc work at Yale. Let me guess. She's going to complain that he's finishing her sentences, right? He'd been teaching at the TBU for 5 years before the murders. And he had no previous history of violence? Not that I know of. What brought him to the U.S.? American exceptionalism. That's what he said in the trial. Okay. Sounds like irony. Do you believe him? I'm not sure you can believe anything he says at face value. That's not very comforting. He is a psychopath, Anna. Organized. Everything he says and does is calculated, but in a way, that means he's predictable. I should be doing different accents or voices for these, right? Like a student reciting a catechism, she responded. You just have to discern the pattern cluster. They reached the Ward 4 wing. Opening the doors with his keys, the guard led Joseph and Anna down a short hall to a room used for counseling patients. A couple doors down, the nursing station opened into a large group lounge where patients were watching television, playing card games, and other activities. Beyond the lounge area was a hallway leading to patient dormitory rooms, about 10 of them on this wing. A state hospital really was set up like a hospital rather than a prison. Oh, okay, so now they're trying to debunk the wokest claims, right? Because earlier they said criminally insane is inappropriate. It's really a prison, but they call it a hospital to be polite. But the conditions aren't even really that bad, so people are complaining over nothing. Is that the point they're getting to here? The security level was not as tight. There were psychiatric technicians, or psych techs, who were capable of handling patients and dispensing drugs, but no security guards in the wing, and the patients moved about quite freely within their unit. The short hall by the entrance held the administration room, counseling room, a closet, and a quiet room for when the patients got out of control, became violent, or just needed to cool off. It had previously been called the seclusion and restraint room, but that was unacceptable, right? Too wokest? But of course, that description was too triggering. Oh my God, dude. These people really need to get over themselves. Like, this is insane. Next up, Dave Cullen is an anti-woke YouTuber that's been around for a very long time. I was pulled down an anti-woke pipeline many years ago. We used to call it anti-SJW. This dude went on a ridiculous tirade about the EU banning gendered language. It's false, of course, but when you fall down the anti-woke rabbit hole, you'll fall for anything. We'll be right back. Don't forget to check out my Patreon. Also, take a look at my website, owenmorgan.com. I'm selling my book, Understanding Jehovah's Witnesses, 400 pages, and my second book, 100 Questions for Jehovah's Witnesses, which is about 80 pages. And you can find them both there on the website. Audio form, ebook form, whatever. It's about my experiences within the religion and the history of the religion generally. There's this guy, goes by Computing Forever. Dave Cullen is his name. He's a YouTuber. He's got like hundreds of thousands of subbies. I don't remember how many exactly, but he was extremely influential in the anti-SJW movement. Now, if you don't know what anti-SJWs are, it was the anti-woke crowd of like 2014 to 2017, give or take. It was all over YouTube. And I fell down that rabbit hole, personally. I believed the anti-woke nonsense at the time. I finally pulled myself out of it, but Dave Cullen never did. He's still there. And it's even worse than I ever was, like by a mile and a half. So I just went and looked at his videos, just out of curiosity, because it's been a while, you know. And he made some wild claims. First of all, he claims that the European Union banned gendered phrases, including movie quotes. They banned it. It's complete nonsense, of course, but, you know, he can claim whatever he wants with absolutely no, like, accountability or whatever. So I want to talk about it. I want to be that accountability by revealing the nonsense that he lays down. He also talks about blazing saddles. And I don't know if you guys know that that movie, but it was done by Mel Brooks. He's got to be, 99 now or something. He was in World War II, fought Nazis in World War II. He's a Jewish guy. He's made phenomenally good movies. He is an icon, this guy is. In his movie Blazing Saddles, he said the N-word. Well, not him, but, people in the movie said the N-word so many times. It's not even countable, probably. I don't know, like 50, 100 times or something. It was set in the West during, I don't know, maybe the 1800s or something. Had cowboys around and everything. And there was a black guy who was appointed to be the sheriff. And the entire town referred to him as an N-word, like all through the movie. And the point of the movie was to say, this is where we once were. This is where I don't want to be anymore. So just listen to his video about this, about Blazing Saddles, and see how he just completely warps this out of proportion.
It's a very sorry state of affairs when comedy genius Mel Brooks has to admit that his classic film Blazing Saddles could never be made today, and sadly he's right. Political correctness and the easily offended special snowflake crowd would simply lose their minds.
Okay, I assume he's talking about me as the special snowflake crowd, right? Quote unquote. I'm not offended by the N-word. I don't know anybody who's offended by it. You know what offends me? Heads using it to attack somebody else, to hurt a minority group, saying it just to do that and no other reason. That's what, quote unquote, offends me. Mel Brooks in this movie wasn't doing that. He was portraying where we once were. And honestly, maybe he couldn't have made it today. I don't know. But that was kind of the ultimate goal of the movie, to show people where we once were and move us somewhere else so that that world wouldn't be acceptable anymore. But okay, keep telling me about snowflakes. Go on.
Snowflake crowd would simply lose their minds. There's got to be a college campus somewhere where this film has been condemned for all eternity into trigger warning hell.
Wait, you telling me you don't know of a college where this happened? Is he just making up outrage right now?
Into trigger warning hell. Blazing Saddles is one of my favorite comedies. The beauty of this satirical spoof is that it completely disregards any form of political correct thinking.
You know what I find so fascinating about this? I'm sorry, I'm going to let it play in a second, but he and I both like this movie. I like it because it's making a statement on race relations and our shared history. He likes it because they use the N-word constantly. Seems to me, in my opinion. All right, keep going here.
Form of political correct thinking. There is no filter.
By the Honorable William J. LaPetitmain.
People all over the place prepared to take him out is the point here. I don't even remember. I think they wanted to destroy the town because they wanted to run a railroad through the town, but they couldn't until everybody was out or until it was destroyed or whatever. So they appointed a black sheriff to destroy it. Or basically they thought he'd be so incompetent that it would just go to ruins and everybody would leave or whatever. That's why they did that.
Assumed the duties of the office of sheriff in and for the township of Rockridge.
Yeah, he turned out to be a really good sheriff in the end and saved the town from the railroad company.
To pay heed to this good book and what it has to say. Son, you're on your own.
While SJWs will look at this...
It is such a good movie, man. I love this. It's very jarring to listen to the N-word said over and over and over again like that. But if you can just get past that, it is worth a watch, actually. You should watch it.
While SJWs will look at this movie as offensive and racist, they fail to realize this...
I don't find that offensive or racist. What are you talking about? I am an SJW, if you will. And, I don't find it offensive. Is he just, looking for things to be offended about because people are offended by it? What?
They fail to realize this movie actually makes fun of racism.
Who is they? They fail to realize that? Who in this fictional world you've built feels this way? This is a joke, dude.
Dock that a day's pay for napping on the job.
Yep.
This is an accurate depiction of the past, though, of this period in time. It was Chinese who moved here and were like basically forced into building the railroads and then shut out of the economy, right? Like terribly mistreated. They're depicting it here completely accurately. This is exactly how it went. And slurs were just like being thrown around like nothing else.
Days pay for napping on the job.
It points out the stupidity of it and does so by not being afraid to play with language and do so in the most irreverent way possible. Yes, naughty words and all.
Like, they're not naughty words. It's not my problem with it. It's that they harm minority groups directly, like using that type of language. That type of language has historically been used to hurt people terribly. It's been used to like denigrate minority groups and used as justification to oppress them and hold them down. And it's just ugly. And there's no reason to use that stuff. No reason. That said, again, like, I don't have a problem with Blazing Saddles making this point. I'm glad somebody made the point.
And isn't it a lovely morning? Up yours.
The story is simple. It's a Western set in the 1870s. The villain, State Governor Hedley Lamar, wants the townsfolk of Rock Ridge to leave the town, which would lower land prices so that a railway line can be built through it.
And every white person in the movie is portrayed as being dumb as dog. Like, this is Mel Brooks. Hedley Lamar. No. Hedley Lamar is on the left. The mayor or whoever the hell, governor, I don't remember. On the right, that's Mel Brooks. And look, he's cross-eyed. He's playing a moron. That was the message that this movie was delivering. And I think it's so funny that just went right over the guy's head. Had no idea that's what the movie was about. He came for the N-word, and that's why he stayed.
Folk of Rock Ridge to leave the town, which would lower land prices so that a railway line can be built through it. So he sends a gang of thugs to kill off the sheriff and generally cause mayhem. Later, the people demand a new sheriff be sent, so the governor, played by Mel Brooks, sends Bart, a black railroad worker who's due to be hanged soon. This is done deliberately to cause tension among the people and make them consider leaving. However, Bart gradually wins the people over as sheriff with the help of his sidekick, the Waco Kid, played brilliantly by Gene Wilder.
Absolutely. God, I miss this movie. I should watch this again.
Bart is actually the hero and has overcome the initial racist reaction he experiences, but he does so not by morally badgering people, arguing with them, or speech policing. He just gets on with his job in a jovial manner. He's a very likable character.
I'll show you another video in a few minutes where Dave is absolutely miffed over the fact that there are characters in movies that are not white. I'm not even joking. Just normal, not straight white men. Like, this guy is so lost. He's so lost. He has no idea what he's even talking about, seemingly.
Likable character. It's the writing that highlights the stupidity of racism, and the townsfolk rally around him as he comes up with a plan to defeat Lamar's band of goons. They even make fun of the KKK, for God's sake.
Hey, boys! Look what I got here! Hey, where are the white women at?
It was a very good movie, man. God. You should watch it, for real.
Considering this movie was made back in 1974, it holds up incredibly well. The fact that a movie like this could never be made today...
Well, it doesn't hold up well. See, that's what hold up well means. Is it acceptable in today's culture? And the answer is no. But that's because we've moved away from using the N-word or passing it out like it's candy or something. Like I said, I don't know of anybody who has a problem with Blazing Saddles. Literally never met a human being that has a problem with it. People just don't use the N-word like that anymore.
This could never be made today, given the delicate sensibilities of the millennial generation and regressive Hollywood. I actually believe
Regressive Hollywood.
It's become an iconic masterpiece. There are so many brilliant one-liners and fantastic moments.
The next man makes a move, then gets it.
Hold it, man. He's not bluffing.
Listen to him, man. He's just crazy enough to do it.
See, people are they're idiots. White people portrayed as morons in this movie, and that went right over Dave Cullen's head.
Drop it, or I swear I'll blow this head all over this town. Oh, Lordy Lord, he's desperate. Do what he say. Do what he say.
It speaks volumes about our society today that we're told we now live in a liberal and tolerant culture, but there isn't a Hollywood studio or mainstream press that would support the production of such a movie today.
How can he possibly say that? He has no idea if a Hollywood press or whatever would support this movie. He's just like making things up. Like earlier, I'm sure there's a college campus somewhere who would ban it because it's blah, blah, blah. He's just like full of it all the way down. He's just like making things up.
Comedy, of course, changes from one generation to another, I acknowledge that. But this film is still hysterical, so I think it has a timeless quality about it. Becoming more creatively conservative and sensitive to words and jokes is not social progress. We haven't moved into some new necessary era of intellectual and cultural understanding where we've all decided that films like this are morally wrong, and now we all know better than those primitive 1970s uncivilized filmmakers.
Nobody's saying that. Literally nobody said that. He's creating a fictitious world and getting angry at it. Like, old man yells at cloud. Is that like one of the memes or whatever?
The reality is we've gone backwards. This film may be over 40 years old, but it's light years ahead of where we've regressed to now.
And where have we regressed to? What is he shooting for? Where does he think we should be? And where does he think we are now? What does that mean? It means nothing. If we're going backward from 1974, then we're going into a time where the N-word was used freely to insult people just because. He is so full of with everything that he says. Anyway, he has a couple of other like absolutely wild takes. Listen to this one where he talks about an article from Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney. I believe Bob Iger is like conservative. I could be wrong on that point. Anyway, listen to Dave just get like really upset over this.
This article is from Bounding into Comics. Disney CEO Bob Iger pushes back against critics, claims infusing messaging as a sort of a number one priority in our films and TV shows is not what we're up to. Really?
Okay, now for the audio audience, I'm going to go through each one of these. I don't know who these people are, but there are two women on screen. One is black, one is white. And it looks like a superhero movie or something, okay?
Really?
This one is a woman on screen with a leather jacket.
Really?
This is a white dude and two white women. Like, okay. What's his complaint here? This is just, what is this, Ant-Man? Is that what this is? It's like, it's the Marvels, I think. And I believe that this one is Ant-Man, but I don't know who the two women are. Anybody have any idea? I think Quantumania, maybe? Anyway, yeah, I have no idea, like, what he's complaining about here. That there are women on screen, should it only be white men?
Really?
There's just a woman on screen now?
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, this one was Ariel, played by a black actor. Yeah, what's the complaint here? Ariel is a fictitious character that was created by Disney. I don't care what they do with her. You know, his real complaint seems to boil down to this. It's not white men, or not white people in general, that are playing this out or acting on screen or whatever. That's the definition of white supremacy. Do you know why people include minority groups like women or like members of the black community or the LGBT community or whatever? Because it sells tickets and stuff, and it improves the company's image to have lots of representation. You know, black person goes to see the Little Mermaid or whatever, and sees like literally all white people. Imagine living in, say, South Africa, and literally every single person that acts in a commercial or in a movie or in anything at all, they're all black. How would it make you feel? It'd make you feel underrepresented, right? Not to say that like white people are oppressed in South Africa. That's just not the case. But I'm just trying to make a point here. Ultimately, every decision that a company makes is for financial reasons. If a company or a CEO makes decisions on any other premise other than make more money, they can be removed. I believe it's illegal for a CEO to do things that are not beneficial to the company.
Really?
This is Harrison Ford being punched by a woman?
Oof! I felt it.
Yeah, I think it's Indiana Jones. I haven't seen that one, but what's the problem? I don't understand why this is bad. Is he just like mad that there's a woman in this?
I felt every bit of that emasculating feminist punch on poor old Indiana Jones.
Emasculating feminist punch?
What a horrid send-off. But seriously, come on, Bob. Is this a joke? Are you joking? You know, it's strange because one can't help but notice a consistent pattern in Disney's recent output of popular franchise productions. The message on clear display over and over again. We're not imagining any of this, and it's clearly being inserted for a reason.
Not imagining what? A woman being in a film? A black person being in the film? No, they're in the film. The thing that he's imagining is like this underlying agenda that they've created and set out to like undermine white people. Like, I don't know what they're undermining here.
So yes, I agree with the author of this article, Spencer Bakuli. It feels like textbook gaslighting. The article goes on to say, Iger offered his take on the House of Mouse's current output during an April 4th interview given to CNBC's David Faber, following the company's victory in denying investor Nelson Peltz and former Disney CFO Jay Rasulo a pair of seats on their board of directors. Later in the article, it says, further pressed by Faber as to his thoughts on both Musk and Peltz's respective anti-woke campaigns, Iger affirmed, people have been coming after me and the company for years, and it's just I don't get distracted by those things. Met with the pushback from his host, but the woke thing has had more of an impact. I mean, you've said to me that you would love to be just out of the culture wars. Do you feel like you're succeeding in that? Iger then declared, well, I think yes. I mean, I think the noise has sort of quieted down. I've been preaching this for a long time.
Look, here's the thing about the culture war stuff. Disney is not doing anything that's like out of the ordinary or crazy in, SJW territory or whatever. People just are like Dave Cullen here, don't want any representation at all. And unfortunately for Dave Cullen, that just doesn't sell. Members of the black community will not feel compelled to see a movie if they can't like place themselves in that movie in some way. Gay people will be more compelled to see a movie or to whatever if they see themselves in that place. It's capitalism. He's getting pissed off about capitalism because it's not upholding white supremacy. That's what's happening. Seriously, that's what this is about.
The company before I left, and since I came back, that our number one goal is to entertain, said Iger. I think, but the term woke is thrown around rather liberally. No pun intended in that regard. I think a lot of people don't even understand really what it means. The bottom line is that infusing messaging as a sort of a number one priority in our films and TV shows is not what we're up to.
Obviously, if that was what Disney was up to, they could do a way better job at quote unquote infusing, what did it say? Infusing messaging as a sort of number one priority. No, it'd be obvious if that's what was happening. Like Bud Light and Dylan Mulvaney. Bud Light is not infusing pro-trans messaging in their advertising campaign or whatever. Target is not giving pro-LGBT messaging. They're trying to sell to a demographic of people. This dude just lives in La La Land.
Not what we're up to. Even if I believed that, which obviously I don't, there appears...
Obviously, you'd be stupid to not believe that, right?
There appears to be a direct correlation between the increase in woke and the decline in the quality and entertainment value of a property.
There's a correlation between the two. So the more woke a company is, the less entertaining it is. Okay?
The more it attempts to drive home the message, the less entertaining it becomes. The more bland, soulless, and off-putting it ends up being. I mean, clearly the political messaging has been a massive priority for Disney, given that it not only inserts it in some form in almost all of its productions, but it has inserted woke at the expense of box office profitability, time.
No, that's just false. It has not inserted... All right, let me tell you something. There's a movie called Black Christmas, I think is what it's called. And I believe it's like a remake of an older movie. And I went to see that with my wife like years ago in theaters. And it was entertaining as hell. I had a really good time, but it was bad. It was a bad movie because very obviously over the top. Like, they kept talking about how these girls were feminists and they were fighting for blah, blah, blah. You know, it was just terrible. It was very obviously pushing a message like way harder than it needed to be. Having women in a role is not woke messaging. Having a black person in a role is not woke messaging. It's just having these people be represented in the film to sell more tickets. Complaints about Black Christmas, I could understand. Complaints about, like, The Little Mermaid, give me a break. You know, I'm curious. Hang on, let me see. Did he talk about Black Christmas? He couldn't not have talked about it, right? No, wow. I don't think he did. Nope, he didn't. Wow, I'm surprised. Anyway, keep listening here.
Time and time again, woke has been to the detriment of the financial success of several films now, and yet they keep doing it. If that doesn't suggest it's a major priority to them, I don't know what does. But as I've said before, the spell has been broken when it comes to woke. It's far easier now to call it out since it's become so unpopular and intrusive even to the average Joe and Jane cinema goer. We're at a point now where woke is no longer immune from criticism. People know it's being forced into popular culture. Wokeness is now like the emperor being called out for having no clothes.
Again, when he says woke, him personally, he means people that aren't white in movies.
Personally, I find all of this pretty hilarious, actually. I recommend grabbing the popcorn and watching the whole thing slowly collapse. Anyway, that's a short one for you today, guys.
Yeah, okay, that's the end of his video. I think this one came out in April 7th, 2024. One more clip from this guy I want to talk about. He's got this video titled, Where No Man Has Gone Before, man in all caps. And the premise of this whole outrage that he's got going on here is the EU banned gendered language. You're not allowed to say actress anymore because actor is just, gender inclusive. Like everybody can be an actor. You're not allowed to say no man has gone before. You have to say no one has gone before. He presents this as though it's real and not like a fabrication in his own head. I researched this heavily. I wanted to know if this is true, so I'll tell you the whole situation in a second.
So by now, you've probably heard about this article from thesun.co.uk called What the Trek? EU Chiefs Target Ban on Gendered Phrases, including...
The Sun is absolutely terrible, should never be trusted. You should find a better source than that.
Called What the Trek? EU Chiefs Target Ban on Gendered Phrases, including iconic movie quotes. And the article is actually referencing this document. It's called Toolkit on Gender-Sensitive Communication, a resource for policymakers, legislators, media, and anyone else with an interest in making their communication more inclusive. Now, the document is actually from 2019, so I'm not sure why this is being brought up now at this point, but the reason I wanted...
Yeah, this video that he made came out January 2024.
To discuss it was because William Shatner replied to this article on X, so I thought it might be interesting to talk about. But there's a portion of it that specifically relates to Star Trek, because...
There is not a portion of this document that specifically relates to Star Trek, but okay, go on.
If you go to page 54, you can see here, it says, examples of situations where women may be subject to invisibility or omission and alternatives to use. And under gender examples, you can see down here, to boldly go where no man has gone before, and that has a red X beside it. Solution, remove the gendered noun, use no one. And the alternatives are to boldly go where no one has gone before. I'm sorry.
Okay, before he continues on, I just want to mention Star Trek changed that a long time ago. They've been saying no one has gone before since like 1991 or something, since The Next Generation. But here's the real question. Is this document real? Did they ban gender-inclusive language? And I'm saying that because, did they ban non-inclusive language? I'm saying that because you can search for it, EU ban gendered language, and it pops up a billion articles here. EU calls for gendered language to be scrapped. EU calls for gendered language to be banned. This is on the Daily Mail. GB News, this is a European, I think it's Great Britain news, I could be wrong. EU idiots slammed for demanding gender-neutral language in the latest woke guidance. Anyway, so what happened exactly? I'll tell you. This document, as he said, it was actually kind of hard to find. It was written by some little EU like offshoot, some little tiny office called EIGE, the European, what is it again? European Institute for Gender Equality, okay? And it wasn't a bill that was voted on or that could be passed or whatever to ban gendered language. It was for legislators who write bills, if they want to use words in each language that include everybody. So, you know, you don't want to ban like men from doing something. You want to ban like everybody from doing something, or you want to like make it legal for everybody to do something. This is how you do it. This is how you would write the bill. These are the words you'd use in the bill. That's what this was for. It wasn't demanding anything. It was just laying out like it's a style guide, a description of how to structure things to include everybody. That's it. And this guy and others, of course, claim that it's a bill to ban gendered language. They gave a kind of a hyperbolic example of not something that should be banned from TV, but something that you would use in bills instead of no man has gone before. Like if you're writing a bill that said no man has gone before, you'd change that to no one. This is an insane propagandistic fake news video. I haven't seen something this bad in a while. He has to know, right? He must know that he's completely full of it here. I don't know how he couldn't. And it's so sad that William Shatner fell for that. Like, what? They didn't mention Star Trek. They were just using an example of something to put in bills or whatever. Are you kidding me? I'm guessing all these articles are right-wing. Yes, they are all right-wing. I should have mentioned that. Thank you for bringing that up. Every website that I just mentioned was all like right-wing nutcases, like far-right extremists. No legitimate news website. I'm talking Reuters, BBC, AP News, or any of those independent or whatever. None of them wrote an article like this on this document or whatever, because it's nonsense.
I'm sorry. Have you not seen Star Trek The Next Generation from 1987? Anyway, let's get into the sun.co.uk article.
Yeah, he's acting like he got a W. Bro, nobody said it should be banned from Star Trek.
What the Trek? EU chiefs target ban on gendered phrases, including iconic movie quotes.
EU chiefs? EU chiefs? Who are these EU chiefs? Is that the person's name who is in control of the entire European Union? First name EU, last name chiefs? Are these initials? Like, is his first name Eustace or something? EUSTACE? This is weasel words. He's just making this up. Well, I guess the Sun or whatever is just making this up. EU chiefs did not do this.
Ban on gendered phrases, including iconic movie quotes. EU chiefs want to ban gendered phrases, such as the classic Star Trek line, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Nobody wants to ban that line.
The bureaucrats say no man should be replaced by no one. So it appears that our friendly bureaucrats at the European Union would like to once again police our speech and rid us of all that toxic gendered language.
Except nobody wants to do that once again. This is just like made up.
How stunning! How brave! How exactly what one would expect from something that was sold to us as just a common economic market, bro.
The EU was sold as just a common economic market? No, it wasn't. It's kind of an overarching umbrella government that sets rules for all of the EU countries or whatever. Like kind of like the federal government in the United States. You have to follow these rules. But every government has ultimate authority over its own system. The EU can't actually force anybody to do anything. They all just agree to. This dude is insane.
Well, no one cares what the EU thinks, but of course, when has that ever stopped them? The Orwellian speech policing of modern liberal progress, folks.
Like, look at this. I'm sorry if you're on the audio audience, but look at this dude's image of him, like this drawn image of him being completely full of himself. Just like he got a W and you just took a huge L. It's so stupid. And you know the sad part about this? In the future, when some other thing happens with the EU, that even if it's fake news, which I'm comfortable saying this was fake news. But the next piece of fake news that comes out of, the far right, who wants to accuse the EU of like policing speech, is going to be that much more believable now because this one was circulated so heavily. Get a grip on reality. Anyway, yeah, tell me what you think about this in the comments. It's just like embarrassing, man. Cade the Squirrel, at least we got some good news finally. A huge left-wing sweep in the UK and France. Even my home, Cornwall, which is notoriously conservative area, is now fully left-wing controlled. Good. 100%. Fantastic news for the left. Fantastic news for the fight against fascism and authoritarianism. The worse a democracy is doing, generally the higher turnout there is in that democracy. So Germany, leading up to World War II, I think the last election had 80% turnout. That's like every voting age person practically, because they could see the democracy like falling basically at the time. And when lots of people turn out, usually it works in favor of reason and rationality. The origins of the terms left and right came from the French Revolution, I think in 1789 or something. And to the left were people who were in favor of the revolution, and to the right were people who were in favor of like an authoritarian dictatorship, basically. People who are in favor of dictatorships tend to idealize the past and create like this mythical history where, things were so great before all of this progress was made. Things are so great in the 1950s. Make America great again. When in reality, that past that they keep calling back to was fake. That never existed. America, when was America great? When do you want to go back to? The 50s? That's when the black community was segregated from the white community, right? And the N-word is just being passed out like it's candy. You don't want to, nobody wants to go back to that time actually, but they idealize it on the right. And on the left, when a revolution takes place, usually it's so distasteful to the members of that government or whatever, they'll even start a new system, a new dating system, because they don't want to remember any of it. So they'll start at year 0. That's happened all through the world with revolutions and stuff. So anyway, the point is that the left has always been in favor of like democracy, and the right has always been in favor of authoritarianism. Just about. That's what the words were like meant to mean originally. Next up, Donald Trump claimed he didn't know anything about Project 2025. What is it? And can he really deny connections to it? Let me prove to you that he knows exactly what it is and that he supports it. We'll be right back. Don't forget to check out my Patreon. Also, take a look at my website, owenmorgan.com. I'm selling my book, Understanding Jehovah's Witnesses, 400 pages, and my second book, 100 Questions for Jehovah's Witnesses, which is about 80 pages. And you can find them both there on the website. Audio form, ebook form, whatever. It's about my experiences within the religion and the history of the religion generally. People probably heard a lot about Project 2025 recently. It's been all over the news. Let me talk about what it is specifically, and what one of the creators of it effectively said. Project 2025, in a nutshell, is an attempt to take over the government and turn it into a dictatorship. And I'll explain how they plan to do that in a minute. But it was written by the Heritage Foundation, which is like a nonprofit think tank for conservative extremists. And the leader of the Heritage Foundation, like the president or whatever, is on the right here. Dude's name is Kevin Roberts. In this clip, this guy says, they're in the middle of a revolution, the right is, and it will remain bloodless as long as the left allows it to be bloodless. Let's listen.
Well, Professor, my great friend, thanks for filling in and doing a great job. 3 things. Number 1, in spite of all this nonsense from the left, we are going to win. We're in the process of taking this country back. No one in the audience should be despairing. No one should be discouraged. We ought to be really encouraged by what happened yesterday. And in spite of all of the injustice, which
I think what he's saying about yesterday, he's probably talking about how the president is now considered to be immune from all prosecution over, quote unquote, official acts. Basically immunity. The president is completely immune from prosecution effectively. which means Biden could order SEAL Team 6 to go kill Donald Trump and he wouldn't be charged for it. But the Supreme Court justices that made that decision know that Biden's not going to do that. Trump might, but that's okay. They'll adjudicate that when the time comes. Anyway, that's what he's talking about, I think.
Encouraged by what happened yesterday, and in spite of all of the injustice, which of course friends and audience of this show, of our friend Steve know, we are going to prevail. Number two, to the point of the clips and of course your preview of the fact that I am an early American historian and love the Constitution.
He doesn't love the Constitution.
That Supreme Court ruling yesterday on immunity is vital, and it's vital for a lot of reasons, but I would go to Federalist number 70 if people in the audience are looking for something to read over Independence Day weekend, in addition to rereading the Declaration of Independence. Read Hamilton's number 70, because there, along with some other essays, he talks about the importance of a vigorous executive.
Hamilton wrote a whole bunch of essays and stuff about how the government should be structured because it was brand new. And some argued in favor of a strong federal government, which is what we have. And others argued for basically no federal government and every state individually makes decisions for themselves. Like they wanted something like what the EU is. There's like an overarching governing body, but no state would have to like adhere to anything. It would just be like guidelines, basically. We obviously got a federal government that dictates what states are allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do, and it takes precedence over everything. That's what Alexander Hamilton was arguing for, successfully. That's what we got. And this guy is misinterpreting that to mean Hamilton wanted a dictatorship. I'm sorry, bro. Like, I don't care what he wanted, even if that were true. I don't want a dictatorship.
In some other essays, he talks about the importance of a vigorous executive. You know, former congressman, the importance of Congress doing its job, but we also know the importance of the executive being able to do his job. And can you imagine, Dave Bratt, any president, put politics off to the side, any president having to second guess, triple guess every decision they're making in their official capacity?
Oh, they absolutely should. They have lives in their hands. They should absolutely triple guess every decision that they make. They should be real sure about what they're about to do. If they're sending people to war or whatever, they're sending fake electors or whatever it is to stay in power. Yeah, they should triple guess that. They shouldn't, in my opinion, be charged with a crime for controlling the military, obviously. I mean, we couldn't function as like a government if that happened, but nobody ever suggested that. That's not how the system works. This guy is arguing that that's what it's like right now, apparently, and he wants to make it into a system where the president is completely unaccountable. Unaccountable.
You couldn't have the republic that you just described. But number three, let me speak about the radical left. You and I have both been parts of faculties and faculty senates and understand that the left has taken over our institutions.
Like, that's just false, but okay.
The reason that they are apoplectic right now, the reason that so many anchors on MSNBC, for example, are losing their minds daily is because our side is winning. And so...
No, I don't know about that, but the right is pushing, basically, it's like a judicial coup effectively right now. So that's disturbing, yes.
I come full circle in this response and just want to encourage you with some substance that we are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be.
These people are trying to spark another revolution. In fact, they're doing the revolution, is what he's saying. Leader of the Heritage Foundation. So Donald Trump came out recently and said, I know nothing about Project 2025. I have no idea who's behind it. I disagree with some of the things they're saying, and some of the things they're saying are absolutely ridiculous and abysmal. Anything they do, I wish them luck, but I have nothing to do with them. It's just completely fabricated. He's pretending he doesn't know anything about the people or who's behind it or whatever. That's nonsense. And I'll prove it to you. But before I do, let me just talk about it in a little bit more detail about what this is, okay? This is from the Heritage Foundation YouTube channel, their podcast or whatever, and they had a guy on who helped write the thing, explain what it is, okay? So let's just listen to this. I'm actually going to speed it up to like 1.5.
But give us a little bit more background on the administrative state. What are we talking about when we talk about that?
Sure. Well, our Constitution lays out 3 branches of government. What we've had emerge over the last 100 years or even more than that is the 4th branch of government that we weren't supposed to have. That's called the administrative state, the deep.
Okay, the branches of government exist to prevent the others from getting out of control. Like Congress acts as a check on the president, and the judicial branch acts as a check on Congress. And, that's how it works. That's why those branches exist. There isn't a 4th branch. He's talking about the FBI, the CIA, and whatever else. There could be an argument that maybe those organizations are too powerful and have less oversight than they should. But that's not a 4th branch. It's under the executive branch. It's still 3 branches.
State, the deep state, the permanent bureaucracy. It's the part of the government that doesn't change. And it's very large. There are 2.2 million full-time non-military federal employees. At any given point, there are between 16 million and 20 million federal contractors. Wow. If you are a senator or a member of Congress, do you have...
So he's just talking about like the federal government, just like anybody, not even like a 4th branch.
If you are a senator or a member of Congress, do you have maybe a dozen people, 15 people on your staff? If you're a U.S. senator, maybe 30 or 40 people on your staff. The Congressional Research Service, there are several thousand people who work for the legislative branch. If you're on the Supreme Court, you have 4 clerks per term. If you're a lower judge, you got a few clerks. So...
Yeah, so the people that he's describing right now, here's the plan for Project 2025. Everybody from the ground up is appointed by the president. Now, there are people who have been in these positions for like decades who are experts. Like Fauci, for example, he has been in that position overseeing pandemics and stuff since, I think, like the AIDS crisis in the 70s or the 80s or whenever it was. I think the 80s. All the way through, he worked for George H.W. Bush. He worked for Reagan, so it was in the 80s. That's when AIDS really started to gain a foothold. He worked for Reagan, H.W. Bush, Clinton, W. Bush, Obama, and then finally Donald Trump. And Biden for a short time, but then he quit, I believe. Because he's nonpartisan. He's not taking a position on anything. He's just doing what he's supposed to do. Handle pandemics. That simple. At no point has he ever made a political statement that I'm aware of. He's, at best, said, I don't like Trump. So this guy, or the Heritage Foundation generally, wants to replace all federal employees with hyper-partisan extremists. And they even built a database of of applicants, of like possible people who could fill those roles. Now, what they're not mentioning is that once you fill those roles, you're taking experts out of the equation. Okay, Fauci was an expert in the field, for better or worse, and should not be replaced with some right-wing extremist anti-vax person or something. And the Heritage Foundation's ignoring the fact that once they're in there, it's not easy to get somebody out of there because they know the job and they've done it for so long. Anyway, that's the plan. Keep listening here.
The executive branch, 2.2 million. So it's clear that within the executive branch, it's a lot bigger, and you got the whole 4th branch there, the administrative state.
So you're talking about people who are working for the Department of Justice, the FBI, the CIA. You're also talking about the Department of Agriculture and Education. And when we talk about all these agencies, those are all part of the administrative state.
That's not the deep state, quote unquote. That's just like people who work for the government, but whatever.
Yes, and they don't change when a new president comes in. They're not responsive to elections. And so you could have somebody who is in a role who works at an agency, maybe like the Department of Health and Human Services, works there for 30 years, 40 years, makes a career out of it. That's a fine thing. But the political control of the administrative state needs to be the political appointees who work for the president.
So they want to replace all of the people in the government with political appointees. That's the point. And up to now, we have judges that like operate in the system who do what's best for democracy, who are just like going to work, doing their job, ruling on this issue, and then going home. And it's not politicized. These people want to replace non-political jobs with political jobs because you never know which one is going to be useful to them to accomplish their goals. And it's concentrating power in the executive branch. The president has way more power than he does right now, and that he should have. A president should not have this amount of power unchecked power. Yeah, listen to him explain his position on appointing all of these people.
There are two basic schools of thought. One is the view of Woodrow Wilson, who is called the father of public administration. This is the view that we have now. This is the view that's been built up over the time since his presidency, basically. And the view is basically that the whole government needs to be run by nonpartisan technical experts. And that
Absolutely. Yes, I love it.
the only thing that matters is experience. The only thing that matters is expertise, how many degrees you have to work for the government. That's the most important thing. And
yes,
the political aspect of it is just superfluous. The other point of view is our point of view. This view is associated with, with President Trump, President Reagan, actually President Jimmy Carter a little bit as well. But
bullshit. Jimmy Carter believed what the Heritage Foundation believes here? No. I'm sorry. I can't buy that.
President Jimmy Carter a little bit as well. But this is the view in favor of political management of the bureaucracy. Our view is that the management of the bureaucracy is a task that is inherently political. You can't take the politics out of politics, and we need to have robust political control of that vast federal bureaucracy.
Okay, now here's where it really starts getting wild. You can't take politics out of politics, sure, except pandemic readiness is not politics. It's just being ready for a pandemic. So he's just like twisting everything around there, but okay.
And the folks who are in policy-making positions should be reportable to the president.
So in other words, your vote should also count towards what's going on within the administrative state.
That's a very good way to put it.
I think the administrative state should be experts, plain and simple. Listen to this next piece here.
So you've talked about some of the objections that people have raised. There's been a certain amount of furor in the media. One of those is that you are taking independent, the word being used, independent experts in the bureaucracy, and you are submitting them to federal control, and you're creating a quasi-dictatorship around the president.
Yes, absolutely. He's concentrating power
around the president. Can you respond to that point? And then are there any others that have been floating out there that would be good to talk about?
Sure. Well, the ironic thing is that we're the people who want a less powerful federal government. We want
I mean, you can say that all you want, but what they're saying and doing tells me otherwise. They do not want a smaller federal government.
Powerful federal government. We want the federal government to be reduced in its size and scope. We actually call for the closure of certain agencies.
Really? Wow. Is that so? You want a smaller federal government? So is that why Project 2025 has a section on banning? Under the proposals would be banned, and tech and telecom companies that facilitate access to such content would be shut down. The document calls for school choice and parental control over schools, takes aim at what it calls woke propaganda. It proposes to eliminate a long list of terms from all laws and federal regulations, including sexual orientation, diversity, equity, and inclusion, gender equality. Huh, that doesn't sound like a small government to me. Weird. I thought he's in favor of small government. That's not a small government. That's a concentrated government with no checks or balances in it. That's really the problem here. The guy wants to set up a system where the president can do anything with no accountability at all, because he knows people on the left aren't going to abuse that. The only people who are going to abuse it are people who are in favor of like dictatorship.
In our policy book, Mandate for Leadership, we want to close down entire departments. We are the people who believe in decentralized power. We want to turn over more power to the states, localities, local communities, tribal governments when it comes to healthcare and education and welfare, protecting our environment. We want to move some of those functions out of Washington, D.C. So that's the first thing. We want.
Yeah, no, he wants to ban a whole bunch of stuff, actually, is what he's doing. And, the outcome of removing regulations about, like, keeping rat poison by the machine that like pumps out Snickers bars or whatever, the outcome of that? People get rat poison in their Snickers. Every single regulation that exists in the government was paid for in blood. It's there because somebody died from it or got very sick or some other thing. You don't want plutonium stored next to the break room. That regulation exists specifically because somebody did it and someone else got sick from it. So he wants to remove those regulations. What is wrong with him? Seriously, he wants a dictatorship.
The federal government to exert less influence in the everyday American's life. We want to reduce Washington's size and scope, reduce the footprint of Washington, make America bigger and Washington smaller. So we're the people who want less government.
You can say that. It's just false. So that's the general rundown of what Project 2025 is. So what about Donald Trump? Does he know what it is? That's the million-dollar question now. Boy, would it be embarrassing if we found an example of Donald Trump talking about the Heritage Foundation or the leader of it or whatever, right? Oops. Yeah, we've got one here. February 28th, 2018. The Heritage Foundation has just stated that 64% of the Trump agenda is already done, faster than even Ronald Reagan. We're blown away, said Thomas Binion of Heritage. President Trump is very active, very conservative, and very effective. Huge volume and spectrum of issues. All right, maybe he got praise from one guy, right? Maybe he just knows this one thing. He saw an article on it or something. That could be, right? Boy, would it be embarrassing if he knew the guy that actually wrote the document, right? John McEntee was in his administration and also wrote the Project 2025 document.
And another firing. President Trump's longtime personal aide, John McEntee, is out of his job. A source says McEntee was fired because he is under investigation for serious issues related to gambling and taxes. McEntee has been hired as a senior advisor to the Trump 2020 re-election campaign.
Uh-oh. This guy wrote the document, or assisted in writing the document. And he was in the Trump administration in 2016, and he was rehired by the 2020 campaign. Oops. Yeah, if you want to claim you don't know the people who did it, maybe don't hire them to work on your 2020 campaign. Boy, would it be embarrassing if the Heritage Foundation and the leader, Kevin Roberts, gave Trump all the credit for coming up with Project 2025 or assisting in the ideas or the direction of it or whatever, right? That would be super embarrassing.
We've been working with all of them on one project since soon after Joe Biden took the oath of office, before any conservative presidential candidates had even entered the race. As my friend and colleague Paul Dans before talked about briefly, our Project 2025 has developed a comprehensive policy agenda, but even more importantly, recruiting people, 20,000 people.
Yeah, that database I was talking about earlier.
To go into the next administration, hopefully to help take back this country for you and for your audiences. We want no credit. We want the American people, if President Trump is elected again, President Trump and his administration, to take credit for that. But it will also be a great sign if all of this is successful, that in fact, as we know in our prayer time, but maybe not every time when we're watching the news, that the Lord is still smiling upon America.
Boy, would it be embarrassing if we had video of Donald Trump shaking this guy's hand, wouldn't it? Boy, would it be embarrassing if we had Donald Trump specifically acknowledging this guy's presence in the room and thanking him for stuff.
Heritage Foundation president, somebody else doing an unbelievable job. He's bringing it back to levels it's never seen. Dr. Kevin Roberts. Kevin, thank you.
Oopsie daisy. Just picked a whole bouquet of oopsie daisies on that one, didn't they? Just want to step back for a second. That McEntee guy, or McEntee or whatever his name is. I don't know if you remember him. I covered him a while back. I covered this specific clip I'm about to watch, but he's sitting in a car. This should give you an idea of who he is, his personality, his interests, his goals in life. He's sitting in a car, and he says this on TikTok.
So I always keep this fake Hollywood money in my car, so when a homeless person asks for money, then I give them like a fake $5 bill. So I feel good about myself, they feel good. And then when they go to use it, they get arrested. So I'm actually like helping clean up the community. You know, getting them off the street.
Colossal scumbag. I don't know how he justifies all this stuff to himself. This is who wrote Project 2025, the document, the 900-page manifesto. Or one of the people. Again, it comes in like a bunch of different chapters and pillars and things, and it was written by multiple people. But it's an initiative run by Kevin Roberts of the Heritage Foundation, partially written by this guy. These people are so integrated in Donald Trump's like administration and campaigns and everything. They've picked people to be in his administration. He knows exactly who these people are. So again, tell me, Donald Trump, that you don't know what Project 2025 is or who runs it. I know nothing about Project 2025. I have no idea who's behind it. I disagree with some of the things they're saying, and some of the things they're saying are absolutely ridiculous and abysmal. No, Donald Trump stands for all of that stuff. He can deny it till he's blue in the face. But what I see from his campaign and what he is doing perfectly mirrors the goals and interests of Project 2025. Again, it was a 900-page book. There was a whole bunch of stuff in there about practically every subject. But the really disturbing part is replacing every federal employee, basically, with Trump appointees. That is not good. Anyway, tell me what you think about it in the comments. I was talking with somebody on Reddit about Project 2025, and they said that it's not, it has nothing to do with anybody. It's not important. Nobody knows what it is, and nobody cares about it. So I gave the guy like multiple examples of senators and other congressmen passing bills with verbiage straight out of Project 2025. And he said, so those aren't important people. Donald Trump didn't say anything about it or whatever the hell. And I, gave him a billion examples of like I did tonight, Trump talking about it and everything, or talking about the things in it. And then he started repeating Nazi propaganda, and I just checked out after that. Next up, ex-congressional candidate Laura Loomer went viral on Twitter for falsely claiming that Joe Biden had a medical emergency on Air Force One. She was not happy when people called her on it and proved she was full of it. She claimed it's true anyway, and the real information will come out any day now. Just wait and see. The responses are actually very funny. We'll be right back. Don't forget to check out my Patreon. Also, take a look at my website, owenmorgan.com. I'm selling my book, Understanding Jehovah's Witnesses, 400 pages, and my second book, 100 Questions for Jehovah's Witnesses, which is about 80 pages. And you can find them both there on the website. Audio form, ebook form, whatever. It's about my experiences within the religion and the history of the religion generally. This is Laura Loomer, if you're unfamiliar with her. She's a full-blown Nazi. She is a Nazi. I mean, she loves Hitler. That's what I mean when I say that. Anyway, she just put out a tweet that said, Joe Biden is reportedly having a medical emergency on Air Force One right now. Press access has been removed. And it was false. It went viral, and it was fake. She made it up. Biden did not have a medical emergency on anything. He was fine. A community note appears under it that says the White House press pool verified Joe Biden landed without incident as scheduled in Wilmington, Delaware. Biden can be seen departing on his own from Air Force One as well. And they have links for all this stuff. And then she responds with like a quote from the community note. Poole did not see the president when the motorcade arrived outside of Joe Biden's home. So where is he? And why were reporters who were set to travel with Biden on Air Force One today told they couldn't do so abruptly? And she like quoted some press pool report or something. And once again, community note. This is common language in press pool reports indicating the pool reporter did not engage with the president when he arrived at home. So she just made this up, presumably, and like double and triple down on it. If you don't know Laura Loomer, let's talk about her for a second. Here's a tweet of her standing in front of a crowd of black people, and it says, "Greetings from Africa. JK, this is New York City." What is wrong with her? I'm just trying to give you an idea of who she is. This should drive it home, too. This clip is from mid-August 2022, when she's running for Congress in Florida.
I have this kind of a blessing, but it's also a curse, where I'm able to see things coming years ahead of when they actually happen, right? And
totally.
Of course, that's when people call you a conspiracy theorist, because they say, oh, that's so crazy, that's never going to happen. And
yeah, I mean, I guess so. I kind of do.
I knew that big tech was going to try to steal the election in 2020. And people said I was nuts. I knew they were going to ban Donald.
Are you kidding me? Donald Trump is saying they were going to steal the election for like a year before the election happened. He's building up, this big fear campaign so that he could claim that he was wronged after the election, after he lost. Give me a break. Wow, she's so super psychic, right?
And people said I was nuts. I knew they were going to ban Donald Trump. People said I was nuts. And I felt like I had to run for office in order to make a difference, because I don't see anybody in the party doing anything to stop this, I'm not saying that I'm a psychic, but...
Isn't that exactly what she said a minute ago?
I am saying that there are people who do, have abilities, right? I mean, it's called prophecy. I'm not saying that I'm a prophet, but what
That's literally what she's saying.
I am saying is that everything that I've predicted has happened. Everything that I said was going to happen has come true.
I'm not a prophet. It's just that I know the future before it happens. Okay.
And so perhaps people should listen to what I say, because I have a pretty strong batting record.
No, she has a batting record of 0. Okay, she gets things wrong more often than she gets them right. And if you follow this tweet that she put out, This is the original tweet. Joe Biden's reportedly having a medical emergency on Air Force One right now. Got 15,000 likes, 20 million views. And when she was community noted, she disagreed with it. I was looking for her response. I don't see it in here, but her response basically was, you wait and see. It'll be proven that he had a medical event and you're going to be wrong and you're going to have to like eat those words and apologize. I don't remember what her words were, but that's the basic, that's the gist of it. She has a batting record of 0. She just claims to have a better batting record than that. Here's Donald Trump shouting her out by name.
Really taken the country by storm. Very powerful person, very strong person, very courageous person, a warrior. Laura Loomer. Laura, where are you? Thank you, Laura. Great job you do.
Colossal scumbag, both of them. Here is Laura Loomer calling Kanye West's cell phone while he was on Alex Jones's show.
Laura, we're live. What's up? This is Laura Loomer.
I'm watching live. I saw you just said that you wanted me to call in, so I'm calling in.
Well, how does she have your number? Well, she called me because she had some concerns about Milo running my campaign.
Seriously, I've really studied a lot of history. Plus, I had family that was there.
Oh, yeah. And this one is Kanye West on the same show saying that he loves Hitler.
And so, I mean, I don't think Hitler was a good guy. I get the Hugo Boss uniforms, amazing.
Do not compliment Nazi uniforms. They sucked. Americans were better.
But I mean, just because you're in love with the design, you're a designer. Can we just kind of say like you like the uniforms, but that's about it?
There's a lot of things that I love about Hitler. A lot of things.
Doesn't get clearer than that, right? She is associated with Nazis, and she herself is a Nazi. She's said a whole bunch of Nazi stuff in the past, and I don't feel like pulling it all up. Like, I can only play some clips, but you get the idea of who she is, right? One more clip that I want to show you that oh God, I love it. I love it to death. I love everything about it. This is a Nazi crying. She's sad because she lost her election. I play this every time I talk about her because I love it so much. You guys are going to have to deal with this clip until the end of time because it's so fantastic. Listen to this Nazi crying because she lost.
We are losing our country because of big tech election interference. And I am pleading with the Republican Party to please start taking this issue seriously. Please. Because the American people deserve representation. And that's why I ran for Congress in 2020. It's why I ran for Congress in 2022. And it's why I'm going to keep fighting for all of you. I'm never going to.
What a colossal scumbag, but oh my God, I love watching Nazis cry. It's something that like really gets me right here about it, you know? Her first claim to fame, I guess, was being banned from Twitter like forever ago. I'm not sure exactly when she was banned. I don't remember, but she went on a social media tirade. It was so funny. Listen to what she said when she got banned.
And called me crazy, but what are they doing? I want to know what people are actually going to do. My life is ruined. Does anybody understand how ruined my life is? I'm sick of it. I don't want to listen to people tell me that I'm a conspiracy theorist. They don't know what it's like to be me. My life is ruined, Alex.
I think this is on Alex Jones after she was banned from Twitter. Yeah. I love it, dude. Her life is ruined. Because she didn't have Twitter. What is she smoking? That is crazy. My God, dude. I'm sorry. Again, it gets me right here to see her upset. I just love it. I love everything about it. She's trying to contribute fascist ideology to society by tweeting conspiracy theories, and she gets removed from Twitter. I love it. I don't want her to suffer for suffering's sake. But when she fails to accomplish the goal of ruining somebody's life, I love everything about it. Yeah, she went on this kill stream thing. This one is from mid-August 2022. It's about 2 or 3 months before she called Kanye West on InfoWars while he was talking about how great Hitler is. Oh, yeah. Well, I'm sorry. One more thing. She's Jewish. Or she was like born into a Jewish family or something like that. But she's one of the good Jews, the ones that like fight against Jews, as if Hitler wouldn't have killed her just as easily as anybody else. There was actually a group called Jews for Hitler in Germany in the 30s. It was officially disbanded and banned in 1935, I believe, like 2 years after Hitler took control and turned it into a dictatorship. She would have been there. She would have been one of those Jews for Hitler.
I'm a really big supporter of the Christian nationalist movement. I support Christians. I'm going to fight for Christians. I'm going to fight for white people. I'm going to fight for, nationalist movements. I'm going to fight against the anti-white racism that is being, perpetuated. I'm going to fight for all Americans, really. All freedom-loving Americans.
Oh, all freedom-loving Americans. Not all Americans, just the ones that she likes the best. I got it. And only the white ones and only the Christian ones. Okay, got it. She said she's going to fight for nationalists. Nationalism is directly responsible, one-to-one cause and effect. It's directly responsible for Hitler's rise to power. Nationalism is an extreme, overbearing belief that your country or your thing, whatever it is, it's usually tied to another word too, white nationalist, Christian nationalist, whatever. It's the belief that whatever group you're a part of has the sole right to rule. Nobody else has any authority in the world to rule. The United States, for example, should control the Japanese government. That would be like a U.S. nationalist. A Christian nationalist believes all other governments are completely invalidated and Christian nationalists should control everything. And they want to do it by force. That's the nature of nationalism. And they want to force everybody in those governments to be that thing. So she's saying that she wants to bring back another Nazi regime when she says this.
Americans, really. All freedom-loving Americans, regardless of their background. But there is clearly a war on white people. There's clearly a war on Christianity in this country. Even though I am Jewish, I'm still going to fight for Christian nationalists. And I find that most of my friends and most of my allies and most of the people who I associate these days with are Christian nationalists.
And she thinks that they're going to spare her. Again, Christian nationalists and nationalists of any kind don't want anybody else in the country or in their, under their rule. They want to force you to be this thing or that thing. And Hitler knew that he couldn't convert Jews out of being Jewish, if for no other reason than because it's also an ethnicity, right? So he took the only other route he could, which is to take them all out. And, people say that Hitler just wanted them out of Germany. He's just complaining about immigrants being in his country. And that's true. He was complaining about immigrants, but the Jews in Germany were not immigrants. They had lived there for hundreds of years, generations upon generations. And Hitler instructed Germany to stop approving passports or prevent Jews from leaving anymore. That's a pretty clear indication that he wanted to just take them all out, right? It wasn't about getting them out of his country. You know why? Because under nationalism, everybody should be under that umbrella. Everybody. It would be useless for Jews to flee to Spain or something because he wants to control Spain. And he wants to keep them here so he can deal with the problem now and he doesn't have to deal with it later where they can organize and fight against him. That's nationalism. That is what Laura Loomer was fighting for, or is fighting for. It's psychotic. She thinks she's going to be spared. Anyway, tell me what you think about it in the comments. She's just shameless. Let's just look at the comment thread real quick. Joe Biden is reportedly having a medical emergency on Air Force One right now. Look at the comment thread under this. 2,000 likes. I'm actually hoping the guy's okay. I want him out of office, but I don't want to see this. I'm glad to see that that's the top response. That's a good... Oh, it's not the top response. I'm sorry. That goes to somebody else. But that's a good response. I like that a lot. Though I don't want Biden out of office either. I want him in office. But that's reasonable, rational debate or conversation or whatever, discourse that is acceptable to me. You want Biden out? Argue with me about it. Tell me why. Don't wish death on him. And then here seems to be the top response to this, Cat Turd. He's a podcaster and Facebook person. I'm not sure. really, really big and influential. I think he's been like retweeted by Trump and stuff. He says, "Where's Hillary?" Where's Hillary? What does Hillary have to do with Joe Biden supposedly having a medical emergency? Why do I care where Hillary is? There is nothing knocking around up there, is there, other than hate Hillary, hate Biden, hate, 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 hate. No offense, but so far I haven't seen or heard any other information about this report. Where did you get this information? Something isn't right with this post. If this were actually true, it would be on every major news network within seconds. Yep, absolutely. She just made it up, presumably. Delete this post, says somebody. That has 1.4 thousand likes. Source? Laura, how many Botox shots can one have to the face before it becomes a medical emergency? Asking for a friend. Wow, okay. Yeah, that's kind of attacking her appearance, and that's like lowbrow, so I didn't go there. Is Hillary with him? Why do people keep asking where Hillary is and if she's with him? I don't understand. Is Hillary Clinton close by? Are you serious? What does this mean? Does anybody else get this? Oh, that's convenient, like we didn't see this happen. That means they're going to make up an excuse why he has to drop out. Oh my God, people. Elder abuse, here we go. And that's how they do it. Apparently, this guy is like convinced that Biden is going to drop out of the race and be replaced with somebody else. It's just absurd. Look, that may happen. I doubt it. I deeply doubt Biden is going to leave the race. He's going to run in 2024, and that's just what it is. But the fact that they're making this claim at all is just wild to me. Like, I would never brazenly, openly, unabashedly claim Donald Trump's going to be replaced before the nomination happens. Donald Trump's going to be replaced as the candidate. At best, I would at least hedge. I'd say, well, I think that might happen. I don't know. This guy's just saying they're going to do it. It's going to happen. Just wait and see. Like, the confidence in these people is astounding. Okay, here's a tweet from Truth Justice under Laura Loomer's tweet. Happening now, Joe Biden is reportedly having a medical emergency on Air Force One right now. Press access has been removed, Laura Loomer. And then he like retweeted a thing about like vaccines or something, about vaccine deaths or whatever. So he thinks that Biden got the vaccine 3 years ago, or 2, or whatever, however long, and now it's causing death in like an 80-year-old guy. Okay, that's an opinion, I suppose. God, these people, dude. They killed him. The regime is ruthless, this person says. How do these people function on a day-to-day basis? Like, they will fall for absolutely anything. Anyway, tell me what you think about this in the comments. Next up, there's a self-proclaimed prophet on YouTube named Troy Black. He claims that God told him who the next president will be. And the answer is a moth. I'm dead serious. God also gave him a message about bananas. Millions of views on this guy's channel. 500,000 subbies. Let's talk about it. We'll be right back. Don't forget to check out my Patreon. Also, take a look at my website, owenmorgan.com. I'm selling my book, Understanding Jehovah's Witnesses, 400 pages, and my second book, 100 Questions for Jehovah's Witnesses, which is about 80 pages. And you can find them both there on the website. Audio form, ebook form, whatever. It's about my experiences within the religion and the history of the religion generally. This is Troy Black. He is a YouTube prophet, quote unquote. He prophesies about Donald Trump and all kinds of crazy stuff all the time. He's kind of like the male Julie Green, if you know Julie Green. And some of the stuff he says is just wild, dude. This guy, unironically, and I'm dead serious here, claimed God told him he was going to win the election. The person that will win the election is Mothman. I'm not even joking. This is a clip right here. Just listen to this for a second, okay? This clip came out January 11th, 2024. So like 11 months or 10 months before the election happened.
The Lord spoke to me about who is going to be in charge of the United States. Now, this will sound a little weird. This word does involve a lot of metaphor, and it involves descriptive language of a person that's going to be, I believe, elected as president. But I'm going to jump in. I'm going to start reading this. And then there was a second word I got on a later date that I'm going to read as well.
Awesome. By the way, anytime you see a cut, that was inserted by him. I put fade outs to black in my cuts so people can, differentiate between them. All right, listen to what he says here.
What I saw was a vision from the Lord of a moth with a fuzzy antenna. So I saw this moth vision, and then immediately I heard a moth will rule the United States. But then also in the Old Testament, we see all these prophecies of the Messiah coming. And yet when he came, the Jewish nation didn't recognize him. Why? It's because the prophecies themselves were unclear. They weren't specific until people looked back after the fact and then realized, wow, this is what the word of God was prophesying about.
Oh my God, dude, that's not what happened. He's talking about like prophecies in the Bible. There are a number of supposed prophetic events. For example, what he's talking about here is apocalyptic literature. I talk about it at length in my book, owenmorgan.com, if you want to find it. But apocalyptic literature was a genre like romance or sci-fi or fantasy or whatever. We don't have it today. But it was a full-fledged genre of writing that existed outside of the Bible, too, at the time. A bunch of apocalyptic writings. And it always followed the same pattern. The writer describes this bizarre, nonsensical scene that they see. You know, an angel standing on a river holding a flaming sword and speaking in tongues or whatever. The reader and the writer are not supposed to understand this within the confines of the genre. And then a messenger comes in and explains what it meant to the writer or to the reader or whatever. Messenger also means, angel also means messenger. That's the word that's actually used. Angel, messenger. Anyway. In the book of Daniel, for example, there's a big apocalyptic writing about a ram and beasts of the sea and a goat that comes in and battles the ram or something. I don't remember all of this stuff. But after seeing all this apocalyptic weird stuff, Daniel says a messenger comes in and explains to him each of these creatures that you saw climbing out of the sea and everything corresponds to a nation. And the message was, each of these nations came and then fell. First the Babylonian Empire, then the Persian Empire superseded it, and then the Greek Empire. No. Oh, shoot. Oh, my God. I suddenly don't remember them in order. Anyway, he listed 4 of them, 4 different empires, and they landed on Greek, because that's where they were in that moment. They were in the Greek Empire. Daniel was written in 164 BCE. It talks about like a little horn that speaks obscenities to God's people or whatever. That little horn was supposed to represent King Antiochus Epiphanes the 4th of, oh my God, I'm just like, my mind is suddenly slipping. I can't believe I don't remember this. I did so much research on this. Anyway, there was a rebellion in Jerusalem. That's what it was. There's a rebellion in Jerusalem where King Antiochus, who was king of the Seleucid Empire, was one of the 4 empires that like split up after Alexander the Great died. The Seleucid Empire controlled Jerusalem. Antiochus controlled that area, and he persecuted Jews terribly. There's a Jewish war basically called the Maccabean Revolt, because Antiochus made them like burn, pork on their altar and all kinds of terrible things. Maccabees retook Jerusalem in the name of Jews through a violent revolution and held it for like ever after that. Anyway, the little horn was supposed to be Antiochus Epiphanes IV because he was terrible. He spoke obscenities to God's people, and it says that it'll crush the little horn, so on and so forth. Anyway, that's the nature of apocalyptic literature. And this dude is claiming that he received a vision from God, just like the old writers from Daniel or Revelation or Ezekiel or wherever the apocalyptic literature is found. He doesn't even understand what apocalyptic literature is. I would bet money on it. But okay, tell me more about your apocalyptic vision that you had about a moth.
Wow, this is what the word of God was prophesying about. Books like Daniel, Ezekiel, even the New Testament where Peter has a trance and a vision from the Lord of a sheep coming down from heaven full of animals. And yet God was using that to say the Gentiles are included in this.
No, it was all apocalyptic literature. I don't know what he's talking about with the New Testament thing, but okay.
Included in this amazing grace that I've given to the world. A lot of times God speaks in ways that don't make a lot of sense until after the fact. So I'm going to read the rest of this, and we're going to have to wait and see what occurs during this.
Actually, it made complete sense to the people who were reading it at the time. Like after the angel communicated it, at the end of all apocalyptic literature, God's people win at the end. That's just like how it all wraps up. And they're like, sometimes you find like code in there, like gematrias, just kind of fun little puzzles with the language that they used to use back then, like Sudoku for words or whatever. They'd use little grammatical code or just fun little things to communicate a message. And the people of the time knew. They understood. By the end of the book, they knew what was happening and what was being communicated. It wasn't like reserved for a future date or whatever.
In this election season. So I saw a vision of a moth, and I heard a moth will rule the United States. As funny as that sounds. And then,
it sounds dumb as dog shit, actually, but okay, whatever. Tomato, tomato.
And then I heard its first year and a half will be tricky. So I'm about while they're in leadership. It will lose one of its wings, I heard the Lord say.
Wait, is it a dude moth or a chick moth?
One of its right-hand men, someone on the inside right next to the one in command. Then I heard, but it will recover and will take ownership once more. And by ownership, I got this impression that meant it will begin to rule with authority once more. And then I heard it will have its wing clipped. And then I heard a cult following is going to move from one man to another consistently.
Boy, that's sounding a lot more like Trump, isn't it?
They're going to see things through a different light. It's going to shift in their favor once they make the move. And the impression I'm getting about this part of the word is that this has to do with leading up to the election itself.
That's the message you're getting from this? The message I'm getting is you need to lay off the acid.
Later that night, I heard this word from the Lord very clear in my spirit. I heard him say, Mothman. Mothman. So he's...
Are you kidding me? Mothman. Mothman is an old, like, kind of an apocryphal story or whatever from Point Pleasant, West Virginia. My grandmother was born and raised in Point Pleasant. I've been to Point Pleasant a billion times. It's big and winding. It's in the middle of nowhere. And Mothman is like this wives' tale, if you will, about some big bug creature or something. I don't know. A man bred with a moth. I'm not even sure what happened. And and Mothman was born, and he like flies next to cars and scares people, and it's just so stupid. Mothman made a cameo appearance in Fallout 76, I think. So anyway, what about Mothman?
I heard him say Mothman. Mothman. So he's using this language of a moth to represent a person, an individual, and it's a descriptive language about the way that they are going to be or something about them. And this is something that I believe is going to be...
There's something about the candidate. They're going to be fuzzy? Is that what it is? They're going to have like moth dust all over them when they enter office?
That I believe is going to be confirmed after the fact. Once we see this play out, it's going to be very clear that this was a sign from God, that God knew what was going to happen. And he was using it not only for his glory to point to his name, but to speak a radical message to the church. See, oftentimes when God performs a radical sign, there's a radical message attached to it. And I'm going to get into that in a second. But
this is absolutely nuts.
Then I heard this on November 22nd. That first word I actually heard on the 21st. I heard this the next day. Mother of the homeland. Mother of the homeland. And I wrote this down. I was like, Lord, what does this mean? I knew.
So he gets a message in his head, Mother of the homeland. Like it's a God radio or something. Mother of the homeland. And that's all he gets. So what could that possibly mean?
What had to do with this word? I didn't realize at the time that this was actually spelling out an acronym, MOTH, or moth. Mother of the homeland spells moth with the first.
That's crazy.
Letter.
I love it, dude. I love everything about it. This is hilarious. Oh, it gets even crazier, by the way. Do you think it stops there? Oh, no. He keeps going.
I heard the Lord say this on December 9th. He explained the mother of the homeland phrase. He said, this is the homeland. It's here. It's the United States. He's talking about the United States. He said, it's someone who is going to take this country in hand the way a mother would. Someone who is going to take charge of freedom and seeing that it happens the way she wants it to. Now, the Lord asked me to address the she language.
I'm sorry. One more thing. This guy has 500,000 subbies, okay, on YouTube. 500,000 subbies. Holy Christ on a cracker, bro.
It happens the way she wants it to. Now, the Lord asked me to address the she language. I believe he's using this mother of the homeland. Metaphorically speaking, he's not necessarily saying that he's talking about a female, though he could be. I don't know. But he also said Mothman, in the original word. So I think it could go either way. Then
he did.
Heard later, Mother A. And when I went to type it down, autocorrect changed it, and it changed it to Mothra.
And God speaks through autocorrect, you see. He wants to deliver a message to this guy, so he delivers it through autocorrect. Okay.
Which is a big giant moth creature from the Godzilla movies, those old stories and movies and stuff. And I was going to change it, and then the Holy Spirit told me not to. Like that's what he said to me to get me to write down Mothra. Maybe he knew I wouldn't write it down, if he said it straight up. But then as soon as I saw Mothra written down, I heard the Lord say this: a giant among the land, yet stowed away for a time in a capsule. It's kind of similar to what the Mothra creature in those stories was. A giant among the land, yet stowed away for a time in a capsule, waiting to hatch, waiting to show up in strength, having to take down a giant lizard to reach its goal.
He thinks that God told him that Mothra is going to arrive and take down Godzilla or something. Like, I don't understand. Take down a huge lizard. So I'm trying to like link this back to reality here somehow. I suppose I could see a scenario in which he means the lizard, the giant lizard or whatever, is like lizard people, but even that is absolutely insane. So whoever the president is going to fight lizard people like Mothra did?
So this is obviously metaphor, okay? Obviously metaphor, but also, in this story...
What could this possibly mean?
I looked it up. Wikipedia says about Mothra, unlike other Toho monsters...
Dude went to Wikipedia to find out about Mothra. Okay, God delivered a message. Mothra is going to become president, and he looked up the Wikipedia page.
Toho monsters, Mothra is a largely heroic character, having been variously portrayed as a protector of her own island culture. So I didn't...
That's the proof right there. Dead to rights. It's going to be Mothra for president, 2024.
So I did not know that when I heard this word, but I went and looked it up, and it agrees with this word that I'm hearing, that this is going to be a mother-like figure interested in protecting its homeland, protecting its people. So who is God talking about here? This word actually seems to connect very specifically with one of the candidates. I'm not going to say who that is.
One of the candidates is moth-like. Which could it be? I don't think I've ever seen any of the candidates like chewing on clothing. I don't think I've seen them like unusually attracted to lights. I'm trying to figure this out here.
Why? Because God did not ask me to make that connection. But just doing a little Googling for yourself, you may be able to find what it is I'm talking about. But there's a very specific connecting point to one of the current candidates. That's all I'm going to say there.
So he voted for Trump in 2016 and 2020, I believe, and he talks about it at length in one of these clips. We don't have time to hit it, unfortunately, but he's a Trump supporter to the core. That makes me assume that the dude is like trying to draw a connection between a moth and Joe Biden, or a moth and Donald Trump as the ruler of the country or whatever. And Joe Biden is Godzilla, the lizard person, I guess, in this scenario. This is wild, dude. Just one more clip here. This is another video from him. This is actually a brand new one to my knowledge. This was made mid-2024. Listen to what he has to say on Donald Trump in this.
So this is what I heard on May 15th. This is a word about Donald Trump. I believe that God is using Donald Trump, and I believe that every Christian has a responsibility right now to ask the Holy Spirit, who should I be supporting? What decisions do you want me to make during this election season? And I believe that God is going to be leading us as we do that. But the Lord showed me what's happening to Trump right now. I'm just going to read through this word, and then I'm going to share a few things about it that the Lord showed me.
What he's about to read here is a prophecy from God. That's how it's framed. He believes God gave him a message to deliver to everybody else, okay?
I began to see a vision on May 15th of ram's horn next to a bunch of bananas. So it was a ram's horn sitting next to a bunch of bananas. The ram's horn kind of represents the bugle call going out, or the trumpet blast going out, right?
It does? Are you interpreting this for me, or?
And I've seen many visions of bananas and Donald Trump over the last couple of years. And at first I didn't understand why I was seeing Trump and bananas.
I got it. Donald Trump wants to run a banana republic.
Together. And then as some of these events have taken place where people started saying, hey, this is looking more and more like a banana republic, some of the things that are happening in the government, and
yes, absolutely, I totally agree.
Potential presidential candidates, and then now actual candidates, and all these things, people are now saying what we see is a banana republic here. And that is, I believe, a clear fulfillment of those words that I was getting about and those visions I was seeing about Trump and bananas. But the Lord is referencing that same idea here, where I saw this ram's horn.
Hilariously, he doesn't think that Donald Trump is running the Banana Republic. This clip is from 2024. He thinks that the current president, Biden, is running a Banana Republic because he had a dream or something about bananas and a ram's horn. This is nuts, dude. This dude needs help for real. Anyway, tell me what you think about this in the comments. This guy is absolutely... This is entertaining as hell, in my opinion. Gear up for Mothra 2024, boys. Gird up, gird your loins, and fill your horn with oil. We're going to have a Mothra 2024. That's all I've got for you. If you like what I do and you want to see me continue to do it, don't forget to check me out on Patreon. And take a look at my YouTube channels. Owen Morgan, where I talk about religious issues. Telltale Fireside Chat, where I talk about politics. Telltale Unfiltered, where I do long-form breakdowns of stuff like this, and take a look at my website, owenmorgan.com. I'm selling my book, Understanding Jehovah's Witnesses, 400 pages, and my second book, 100 Questions for Jehovah's Witnesses, which is about 80 pages. And you can find them both there on the website. Audio form, ebook form, whatever. It's about my experiences within the religion and the history of the religion generally. Okay, thanks for watching, guys.